The room went silent when I said it. Not the polite silence people pretend not to notice, the kind that presses against your ears. My husband blinked once, like he'd misheard me. His mother stopped chewing. And for the first time that night, I didn't smile. My name is Elena. I'm 34, married for 7 years, and until that moment, I was the woman everyone described as reasonable.
Calm.
Easy to work with. Easy to step over. I earned more than my husband, funded most of our lifestyle, and somehow still ended up treated like a guest in my own marriage. Especially by his mother, Marina, who believed my salary was a family resource she managed by birthright. That dinner started like dozens before it. Her apartment smelled like overcooked chicken and lemon cleaner. The table was set too formally, as if we were strangers auditioning for approval. Marina asked polite questions with sharp edges, the kind that sound harmless until you replay them later. "So, Elena, are bonuses still unpredictable?" she asked, eyes flicking to my purse. "Must be stressful, not knowing how much extra money you really have." I answered calmly. I always did. I said my job was stable. I said I was grateful. I said nothing about how my paycheck paid for the car we arrived in, the vacations she bragged about, the medical bill she'd quietly handed my husband last month. Then she laughed, soft, indulgent. "Well," she said, turning to my husband, "at least her income can help the family when needed. That's what wives are for." Something inside me finally aligned. I looked straight at my husband. Not her. Him. And I warned him, quietly, clearly, that one more word from his mother about my salary would end polite conversations forever. That I would explain things myself.
Properly.
About boundaries. About money. About ownership. He didn't answer. He just reached for his water, eyes down, and Marina smiled like she'd already won. That's when I realized this wasn't about dinner. It never had been. And I was done waiting for him to choose a side. On the drive home, the city lights blurred past the windshield, and my husband said nothing. Silence has weight when it's chosen. I watched his knuckles tighten around the steering wheel, waiting for him to defend me, or at least acknowledge what had happened. He didn't. Instead, he exhaled and said, "You didn't have to make it awkward." Awkward. Not humiliating. Not invasive. Awkward. That's when the pattern sharpened. Marina had always framed her comments as concern, questions about my generosity, suggestions about helping family, jokes about how my job was luckier than his. And every time he smoothed it over, told me she didn't mean it, told me to ignore it, told me family was family. But family didn't Venmo requests at midnight. Family didn't forward renovation quotes for later. Family didn't count my income like inheritance. That night, lying awake beside him, I realized the pressure wasn't accidental. It was organized, and I was the only one pretending not to see it. The first crack came a week later, disguised as practicality. My husband mentioned, casually over coffee, that his mother was thinking of downsizing. He said it like a neutral fact, like weather. Then he added, she was wondering if we could help bridge the gap for a few months.
We.
The word landed wrong. I asked how much. He didn't answer immediately. That pause told me everything. When he finally named the number, it was almost exactly my monthly net income. Not savings. Not extra.
Mine.
I laughed once, sharp and surprised. "And you agreed to this?" He frowned. I said we'd talk about it. But talking, I'd learned, was just the warm-up to consent. That night, I opened my laptop and scrolled through our shared accounts. The small transfers I'd ignored before lined up neatly now. Utilities I didn't use. Subscriptions I didn't approve. Gifts labeled miscellaneous. It wasn't one big betrayal. It was dozens of small ones carefully normalized. And the worst part? He thought I'd never check. The humiliation didn't happen in private. Of course it didn't. Marina hosted a birthday lunch the following Sunday. Extended family. Neighbors. People who loved applause more than truth. I wore a simple dress, neutral smile, and said nothing. I watched, listened, counted exits. Midway through dessert, Marina stood and raised her glass. "I just want to thank Elena," she said warmly, eyes shining. For being such a supportive wife. Some women forget money isn't theirs alone once they marry. Laughter rippled. Polite. Approving. My husband smiled. Actually smiled. My chest went hollow. Not dramatic pain, clean, surgical. I felt something shut off. When I looked around the table, no one met my eyes. I was a concept, not a person. A resource being publicly acknowledged. I stood. Lifted my own glass. To clarity, I said calmly. Because misunderstandings grow when people assume access they were never given. The room froze. Marina's smile slipped. My husband whispered, "Sit down." I didn't. And that was the moment everyone realized I wouldn't be quiet anymore. I didn't cry afterward. That surprised me most. At home, I showered, changed, and sat at the edge of the bed while my husband paced, explaining tones, intent, embarrassment, everything except responsibility. His words slid past me like static. I was already somewhere else. Calm doesn't arrive suddenly. It settles when a decision is made. I opened my laptop again. Not angrily. Precisely. I listed everything. My income, my contributions, the accounts I funded, the access I'd casually granted because trust felt cheaper than paperwork. I read messages I'd ignored, requests I'd answered with silence instead of refusal. Silence, I realized, had been interpreted as permission. So I corrected that. I called my bank and separated accounts. I scheduled meetings. I changed authorizations. I drafted one email, polite, clear, unemotional, outlining boundaries and reimbursement expectations. No accusations. Just facts. Revenge doesn't need noise. It needs timing. When I finally looked up, my husband was watching me like he'd just realized I spoke a language he never bothered to learn. I smiled softly. "Don't worry," I said. "I'm handling it." The first call came 3 days later. Marina. Sweet voice. Too sweet. "Elena, darling, there seems to be a problem with the transfer this month." I let the silence stretch just long enough to feel intentional.
There isn't, I said.
The access was temporary. It's been corrected. Her breath caught. But we counted on that money. I know. I replied evenly. That's why I sent the email. Future expectations need agreement. Past withdrawals need reconciliation. She laughed, brittle now. You're being dramatic. No, I said. I'm being accurate. That evening, my husband confronted me, papers in hand, confusion edged with panic. You didn't tell me you were doing all this. I met his eyes. I warned you. He opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. Mom's upset. I'm sure, I said calmly. She's not used to accountability. The next day, a repayment request hit her inbox. Itemized, dated, indisputable. That's when the tone finally changed. Not anger.
Fear.
Fear makes people sloppy. Marina stopped calling me and went straight to my husband. Long messages. Voice notes.
Tears.
She said I was humiliating her. That family doesn't keep ledgers. That good wives don't embarrass their elders. And for the first time, those words didn't reach me through him. Because I'd already removed myself from the triangle. He came home late one night, eyes red, voice flat. She says she'll tell everyone you're greedy, that you're tearing the family apart. I nodded. She already did.
Publicly.
Remember the toast. He sank onto the couch like something had finally collapsed. She says if we don't fix this, she'll need to sell the apartment. That's her decision, I said gently. The gentleness startled him. When the repayment deadline passed, I didn't chase her. I forwarded the documentation to a lawyer I'd consulted quietly weeks earlier. Not to sue, to formalize. A letter arrived at Marina's door. And suddenly, everyone wanted to talk privately. Especially my husband. The twist wasn't loud. It never is. Marina didn't call me. She didn't shout. She didn't apologize. She paid. Quietly. Fully. Every dollar. Because the lawyer discovered something she hadn't expected me to notice. Years of family help quietly funneled through my accounts had tax implications she couldn't afford exposed. My money wasn't just convenient. It was covering her. When my husband finally sat across from me, really looked at me, his voice cracked. You could have ruined her. I shook my head.
No.
I gave her a choice. He asked if we were okay. That was the final clarity. I warned you, I said gently. Not her. You. I moved out 2 weeks later. Peacefully. Financially intact. Legally clean. Marina lost access. My husband lost the comfort of silence. And I gained something I hadn't had in years. Control without cruelty. Money reveals entitlement. Boundaries reveal character. And I learned exactly who they were the moment I stopped being useful.